Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 19th Hole Golf Show. I'm Ryan Ballingy. It's great to have you here. My guest today is Nicholas Callaway. He is the editor and obviously namesake behind the Ely Callaway memoir called The Unconquerable Game, My Life in Golf and Business. Nicholas, thanks for being here. You work with Andrew Moorhead on this. Can you give us a sense of what went into this for you in working on this memoir by Mr. Callaway?
It's great to be with you, Ryan. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. This project is 30 years in the making. My father, Ely Callaway, had an amazing life, and in the 1990s, right after the Big Bertha changed the business and game of golf, I felt that having grown up with him, he had so many interesting things to share about his life, and I convinced him that he should write a memoir. Excuse me. Excuse me. He worked with several different writers, finally with Larry Dorman of the New York Times, but he passed away in 2001 before finishing it. And so it sat for close to a generation. I inherited his archives, and I decided during COVID that his story should be told. So that started me on a journey as an editor and publisher. I have a company called Callaway Arts and Entertainment. We publish books with renowned artists the world over and across all media. But in then I spent a year researching in his archives and made many discoveries that he never told me. He never told anyone in his family. And so this book is going to be a surprise, and we hope an inspiration for everyone who enjoys the game of golf, anyone in business, from a garage startup to a Fortune 50 executive, and anyone, I think, looking for inspiration in life. It's a very inspiring book. And as you say, it's called The Unconquerable Game, My Life in Golf and Business by Ely Callaway, who founded Callaway Golf at the age of 63 in 1982. And that is an inspiration in itself about how it's never too late um, to begin again. But that was after two other full careers in as a pioneering uh, uh, viticulturist. He started a vineyard and winery called Callaway in the 1970s, and before that, an entire career in textiles.
So how much, what percentage of the final product would you say is what Ely got through with Larry Dorman, and then what was kind of the contributions of you two writing this or working as editors together?
It's all in his words and in the first person. He left behind, when he passed away, hundreds of pages of notes, transcripts of interviews with Larry. But then when I went into his archives, I found things that really complete the story of his life that he alluded to, that he wanted to tell, but that he passed away before he did. So everything is in his own words, but it was a giant jigsaw puzzle that needed to be assembled.
I would love to get into that with you. I mean, what does that kind of library pile? I mean, whatever term you want to attach to, what does that collection of information? What did that entail? How long did it take you to kind of sort through it and make sense of it? Not only for maybe your first person perspective, but also Ely's perspective.
Yes, it was when I received his personal archives, which I inherited. It was 35 bankers' boxes, tens of thousands of documents. He kept everything. He kept his scorecards from the Crosby Clambake in 1968 when he played with Arnold Palmer and Mark McCormick. He kept every speech he ever gave. So that was indispensable. He also kept his journals. He kept a daily diary every year. So as we were putting together all of the pieces, we had primary source material that we could cross-check and fact-check against. So that process in itself was a year. It was a it was a it was a deep dive into Ely Callaway's papers, also many photographs, memorabilia. Then with Andrew Moorhead, an extraordinary young researcher, playwright, who I hired first as a research assistant, but ultimately became my co-author. Then we spent another 2 years assembling from all the primary material into integrating it into a finished first-person narrative.
Do you, was Ely a saver because, he kept all of this stuff because that was who he was personally, or did he have an intent behind it more than just, hey, this is my life and I like to keep these kinds of things?
That's a great question. And the answer is both. He did meticulously keep everything. Um, but in the middle of researching those archives, I came upon a sealed envelope that said, "Do not open until after my death," in which, in his handwriting, in the first person, he uh, assembled a dossier, 175 pages of the story that forms the centerpiece of the book. It's chapter 4. It's called The Madison Matter, and it gives context and meaning to everything else that happened in his life. And it was that at the height of his first career as the president uh, and CEO to be of the world's largest textile corporation called Burlington Industries, where he had spent 30 years in the industry and um, close to 10 years at Burlington. He uncovered a corporate scandal and conspiracy and cover up that uh, that 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 meant that he faced utter ruin. And if the scandal had been revealed, um, everyone in the company might have been indicted. The company's stock would surely have crashed. Everyone would have lost their jobs. And Ely had 98% of his net worth that he had reinvested because he believed so strongly in the company to which he had devoted his life. Well, this scandal, his reaction was to try to convince his fellow executives who had betrayed him and not told him what they were doing, that this began a 5-year campaign from 1968 to 1973 to get the company to do the right thing, admit their malfeasance, and to come clean and to do the right thing. He failed. He failed in that effort to get them to do the right thing, which resulted in him being fired and them trying to hang the conspiracy on him. And his lawyer, who was his oldest friend when he first uncovered this in 1968, when he asked him, "What should I do? I've just found out this astonishing scandal, he said, write everything down, keep a written record of every note, every conversation, um, and that's what he did. And so this was the document, his document that in because he didn't know if he was going to succeed in getting the company to come clean. This is the was his document for legacy. So that if he passed away without the truth being told, he was leaving this behind for the historical record. I found that. He never told me during his lifetime. He never told anybody. So it's a long way of answering your question. Here's a case where record keeping um, um, tells us a story that would have been lost to history.
Yeah.
Without that story, he would have never left the textile industry. He, as a result of being fired, he bought a vineyard, land in an arid region of Southern California in Temecula, and he planted a vineyard. In other words, he made a huge leap from being a top industrialist in 20th century post-war America to being a pioneering brand creator and lifestyle entrepreneur in California at the same time as the wine revolution was centered up in Napa. He was in Southern California, but also Silicon Valley, Hollywood. This was an incredibly this was a fertile moment and place in American history, and he became a very important part of that, not only with the Callaway Vineyards, but then, of course, Callaway Golf. So the message is, if he hadn't left behind this record, I would have never found it. But it really is it's one of the most interesting discoveries in the book. Uh, and but it's a great it has many life lessons in it as well. So he wrote that down for history. But if I hadn't happened to find and open that envelope, because he didn't leave it for anybody else, we would not know the full story that's now going to be told to the world.
When you discovered that what turned out to be this dossier, what did you think it was? Obviously, being an incredibly thick, assuming a manila envelope or folder that it was.
Oh,
That,
yes,
that-
it was sealed. It was sealed.
so when you discovered it, what went through your mind of what this could possibly be before you got into it?
It's kind of like, coming on the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, you know that something is significant there, also because he wrote it all out by hand,
Yeah,
which he did because it couldn't be on the company record, because the company would not have allowed it to go on the record because they were trying to cover it up. It
yeah.
was, by the way, the scandal related to antitrust and monopolies and unfair trade practices. And this is one example of many in the book. Ely had this extraordinary ability to be at the center of so many of the mega trends and key moments of the 20th century. It's almost like Zelig. And so uh, he he um, he found himself in the middle of this issue that was the whole issue of globalization and international trade. I mean, all we have to do is, go online this morning and my goodness, balance of trade and tariffs and is so this is one of the extraordinary things about the book. Again and again and again, and it's one of the reasons I wanted him to write it, because I had a lifetime of watching him having such a vision and being prophetic, that here's one example that in fact threatened it was an existential crisis for him, and how he responded to it defined him and therefore becomes a real inspiration for others who may find themselves in similar crises. But he here he is addressing an issue that 45 years later is still embroiling the entire world.
Yeah.
So, so um, the book reads like it was written today about issues that are more urgent, relevant than ever, as well as timeless issues about telling the truth, about integrity, about how if you make a mistake, what to do. And so this is a great business manual, but it's a great life manual as well.
I mean, it seems maybe too obvious of a point that if the scandal doesn't happen, then maybe Callaway Golf doesn't happen.
It
Um,
most definitely would not have.
and that seems kind of maybe too plain of or too obvious of a point. But also to that end, that if he doesn't experience what he does in the textile world, not only does he not have maybe the knowledge or experience of that manufacturing and trade process to kind of make Callaway Golf what it was, but also the business ethics to be able to do things the way he wanted to do them. Can you kind of explore both of those points, more kind of the logistical side of things, but also the ethical side of things, and how that experience kind of led him to run Callaway the way that he did?
Yes, it there's a direct line, and that's why the book is interesting, because he learned through trial by fire, and but it didn't embitter him when it easily could have. It didn't defeat him. It it really forged his character, and he brought those principles, not only practical principles of business, but also, as you say, those ethical. Um, it for it it forged his ethical philosophy. And I think one of the great pleasures of the book is there are many, many people who have come to us who knew Ely. And it's remarkable how many people there still are. And they have a consistent message, which was Ely was so inspiring because he cared about people and he cared about bringing your best to your work. And that means not only your best talent and skills, and he was a great, Johnny Miller called him the greatest leader of people he ever met. And he was beloved of millions of people, from the pros that he gathered, or the from Arnold Palmer and Gary Player and Nicholas and Chichi Rodriguez and um, Jim Colbert, uh, to all of the employees, all the ones that I've met talk about how he would take the time to get to know them, to stop and speak with them, and it was genuine. It was not kind of manufactured. It was real, and so that created a devotion, a motivation to be your best, or to rise to what Ely would hope and expect of you, and also to always, as Ely said, to the bedrock quality that he talks about in the book is to tell the truth, and that if you ever make a mistake, or don't tell the truth, to admit it and correct it immediately. Because if you don't, you just compound it and you dig yourself in deeper and it gets worse. Now, there's another message that is not only timeless but relevant to right now.
For certain, yeah. I don't think that needs to be extra underscored. I think that's hopefully plainly obvious to people at this point in the game. Uh, for you, what did you learn about Ely Callaway that Nicholas Callaway didn't
Hmm.
know beyond maybe the dossier and the kind of bedwork of that story, but from the documentation that maybe you didn't know about your relationship with him?
That he was willing continually throughout his life to take leaps, to risk everything uh, for the sake of growing, learning, teaching. Uh, he was hugely ambitious, always from beginning to end. But I think one of the things I had not realized was because he was very good at, retrospectively issuing his own press release and making it all seem very easy, but it was hard. And he was often uh, he went from the leading edge to the bleeding edge. And so it made me appreciate um, just what he had so much he had so much ability to risk everything for the sake of his vision.
And what do you see in him that you see in yourself? What did you maybe inherit or come to appreciate more even later in life um, from him, and that carries on now?
I think at heart, I remember from the earliest age from both of my parents, there's that first and last, the importance of integrity, and treating, uh, um, being honest, trying to treat people well, always with respect. I think that that was instilled in me from the earliest age, and I hope I've continued to keep that always as the most important thing. It's a kind of, I think you, I think you can learn it. And I think it's one of the things that the parents, if that's the values by which they live, that they can instill in their children. So I feel at least that was given to me. Uh, uh, um, that was given to me from the start.
And what will end up being the kind of greatest pleasure of doing this book, of going through Ely's memoir
Mm.
and capturing, fully capturing his perspective on retrospectively what was an incredible American life.
Um, I think it is his oldest friend called him the Merchant of Fun. And he brought to everything he did such such joy and vitality. And he had that rare thing that we call charisma, and there's no doubt about it. And so for me, in doing the book, seeing how many people were inspired by his charisma. And what I hope is that we have embodied that and captured that quality that he had that ended up changing millions of people's pleasure and enhance their lives, that the book will have that same effect on this generation and help people to fulfill themselves, but have fun doing so.
Well, it certainly had an effect on me. I mean, coming from the perspective of trying to form a business in golf
Mhm.
and doing the hard work behind it, that I'm sure that he put in harder work than I ever did, and but still trying to do so ethically and with respect for other people, and while at the same time being highly aspirational to do something that hasn't been done previously. I mean, all of that I think should resonate with a lot of people, whether you're an entrepreneur or you're not. But as a human being, just that kind of inspiration, I think that's something people need.
Well, I agree with you, and so thank you for spreading the word. about it, I think his magic is going to happen all over again.
Well, I hope so, and I hope people can read the book and really, really digest just how incredible this man was, how
Oh, thank
incredible
you.
Ely Callaway was. Nicholas
And,
Callaway, thank you for coming on and talking to me. Again, the book title is The Unconquerable Game: My Life in Golf in Business. Thanks
yeah,
very much, Nicholas.
it's being released April 8th, and you can pre-order it on Amazon, on bn.com, order it from your local bookseller, and it's $40. It's a $40 hardcover, and it's not only a print book, but it's the world's first AI audiobook. So Ely's coming back in his written words and in his voice.
That's super cool. That's very cool. I'm excited to hear it as well. So,
Good.
Nicholas, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we could talk again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ryan.